Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to take a look at the best champions of the current patch 7.11. There are going to be some familiar faces while also showing off some new faces and some champions that have risen to the top just because of the recent changes to the current patch. So if you end up enjoying the video and you want me to continue updating you on the best champions for every patch, then let me know by simply hitting that like button. But as per usual, this video will be made in collaboration with ProGuides, a very familiar name. It's a website that tries to improve your overall gameplay knowledge and mechanics. I have a link to their website down below in the description where you can check them out and even try them out for free, so there's really nothing to lose and I recommend checking them out. Alright, but let's start talking about the very first champion in this video, and it's going to be the one on the thumbnail and the one I'm sure you're most wondering about, Draven. So Draven at the moment is actually extremely strong. He's the second highest win rate ADC of all the ADC champions, and he does an insane amount of damage and has great synergy with Death's Dance. He also has one of the best laning phases of most ADC champions, maybe next to Caitlyn, so he can abuse a lot of current strong ADCs as well. He's probably the best snowballing ADC as well, all thanks to his passive if he can ever get a kill in the laning phase, or at least get a kill before dying. And I mean, just take a look at this little graph right here. It shows quite a bit. I mean, the power of Draven is definitely no joke, and there's a very good reason as to why he's just so insanely strong. Eventually, once you get your Death's Dance, Infinity Edge, and maybe like a Phantom Dancer or something, or even Rapid Fire Cannon, you can literally just stand in one spot as long as the axes are of course coming back to you, and probably just kill almost any single champion because of the amount of lifesteal you're getting back and the sheer amount of damage you're dishing out. It's almost as if it's finally time for TYLER1 to make his return to League of Legends. But I'm not sure how many of you know, but TYLER1 has actually been playing League of Legends. There have been streams that actually spectate his games as he climbs the rankings and gets to Masters or even Challenger. So in other words, TYLER1 technically is back in the meme form and actually in reality. But let's take a very quick look at the build that you want to run whenever playing Draven. So for items, like I said, Death's Dance, Infinity Edge are without question core. I mean, Static Shit, Rapid Fire Cannon, even a Phantom Dancer in there are all very solid items. His Q ability gives him an insane amount of just bonus AD as it is, and just combining that with also giving him a lot of crit chance and the synergy of all the items that you get, he becomes pretty damn unstoppable. But let us move over to the mid lane and talk about Malzahar, because his win rate has absolutely just completely spiked. He has the highest win rate of all the mid lane champions, sitting at almost a 55%, which is pretty damn high. And the reason for this is because, well, he actually did get somewhat of a rework this patch. His W in terms of how it works is now different because it does work on a charge system and it actually clears the minions quite fast. On top of this, his ultimate now does less damage percent wise in the AoE around it, but it actually does quite a bit of single target damage to whoever you actually use the ultimate on. The ratio on his ultimate is insanely good, and I mean, Malzahar is essentially just back to what he used to be back when he was actually a very good champion. So all in all, his ability to push in the lane, have decent lane pressure, and of course just pressing R on someone and rendering them completely useless unless they have a Q assess is all a very good thing, especially in the current meta. So with all that being said and done, let's take a quick look at the build you want to run when playing Malzahar. So Deathfire is going to be without question your keystone of choice, just naturally because of the synergy that it offers. And the items that you want to get are going to be Morellonomicon because it gives you a lot of AP, and of course the CDR, which is always a useful thing. And then you want to get things like a Liandry's Torment, Rylai's Crystal Scepter. Again, it is just because of the synergy, especially with his E ability, and it just makes Malzahar quite obnoxious to deal with. But staying in the mid lane for just one more champion, I actually want to talk about LeBlanc. Now this one might be a little bit random because her win rate is not the highest in the world. I mean, it's about 48%, which isn't bad, but it's definitely not anything good. But from what I've personally seen, LeBlanc is actually really strong if put into the right hands. I mean, her laning phase power is still insanely high, and just the amount of things that she can do and the amount of pressure she can actually dish out if you know what you're doing with her is almost unmatched. She can easily assassinate squishies, has a lot of mobility with her kits, and it's very hard to keep track of her and actually catch her and stop her. She has a lot of CC with her chains. She's just very obnoxious to deal with if the person knows exactly what they're doing. So especially in higher elo, if you don't want to risk facing that, and if you don't want to risk putting her in the wrong hands, which I promise you will regret, then it's better off just either picking her or just flat out banning her. But with all that being said and done, let's take a very quick look at the build that you want to run when playing LeBlanc. So Thunderlords is going to be your keystone of choice. You want to max your Q, then W, and then E. And for items, things can really differ just depending on the game and what you're feeling. Gunblade usually is a core item, of course, with your boots of choice. Lichbane is a fantastic option on top of a Luden's Echo and even a Banshee's Veil, but those items can be easily replaced with either something like a Zanya's, a Rabadon's, or a Morellonomicon. It really just depends on what the enemy team has. I mean, do you need the extra CDR? Do you need the extra healing reduction from the Morellonomicon? What do you really need? Do you need the Zanya's effect to stop certain abilities, maybe like a Zed? Can you get away without getting a Banshee's Veil because maybe they don't have enough AP threats that you're worried about and you can instead go for Rabadons? It's just things like that. Following this, I decided that I actually want to talk about one more mid lane champion, and that's going to be Kassadin. Now, I'm sure most of you know about Kassadin already. I mean, I personally play him a decent amount myself whenever I'm playing or recording my journey to Masters, because honestly, the champion is just really strong. He counters a lot of the current meta AP champions in the mid lane, and if you play him smart, reserved, and just passively for the first few levels, you scale like an absolute madman. The longer the game goes, the more difficult Kassadin becomes to deal with, especially once he gets rank 3 ultimate. He's literally teleporting every 1 second. So all of that combined, him just being really strong in the late game and just being really difficult to deal with, makes Kassadin to be a pretty damn strong champion, especially right now. And easily he's one of my personal go-tos. But let us take a quick look at the build that you want to do when playing Kassadin. So your keystone of choice is going to be Deathfire Touch. This will help your laning phase by poking out with your Q ability and getting some extra added damage. Following this for items, you also want to get things like the Rod of Ages, a Lichbane, which are both absolutely core, Zanya's Hourglass, since you are still a melee champion and you'll be in the middle of the fight, so having the Zanya's to save yourself will always be a plus. But next, let us move all the way over to the jungle and talk about 3 champions here, all 3 of which are very strong at the very moment. The first champion I want to talk about is going to be Zac, easily one of the best junglers at the very moment. In fact, all 3 of the jungle champions I'll be talking about in this video are going to be all more or less equally strong because they're all sitting at a 54-ish% win rate. Either way though, Zac, he did get a little bit of a nerf. He actually got a hotfix last patch, but that didn't really seem to change much because he's still sitting at a 54.95% win rate, while also sitting at a 10% play rate, which is very, very impressive. But the reason for this is quite simple. I mean, his clear is very strong, he has a lot of AoE damage, his ganking power is also very effective because of his E ability and the range that it offers. But the biggest things have to be his Q and his ultimate. His Q ability can actually set up a lot of really crazy ganks, and it can really catch people off guard, and if you really know how to use his Q ability, apparently it can be really OP. Also, people now understand how to combine his ultimate with the rest of his abilities in the kit and the CC, so if you properly utilize his abilities, well, chances are you'll easily get someone in your ultimate and pull them back towards your team, which will make the gank that much more effective. Worst case scenario, you'll get a flash out of them. And on top of everything else, he's also extremely difficult to kill later on into the game just because of how tanky he gets. But with all that being said and done, let's take a quick look at the build that you want to run when playing Zac. So your keystone of choice is going to be Courage of the Colossus because of just naturally how well this synergizes with Zac, and it gives you even better tankiness when going for those engages. Your items are going to really just be dependent on what you're facing and how much of each resistance you need, but things like a Spirit Visage, Randuin's, maybe some of the new items will be all very effective. But following Zac, we also have Ivern. Now, he's a champion I've been talking about in probably like at least 7 of these in a row, but he's just simply not getting enough nerfs. I mean, whenever he does get a nerf, it's honestly so insignificant that it truly just doesn't even matter. And almost every single time I've talked about one of the Ivern nerfs, I've said every time, it doesn't matter. This nerf is way too minimal and he's still going to be a top tier champion. And what do you know? He's still a top tier champion, top tier jungler. He's still pretty much the same way as he was always. I mean, he still has great counter ganking potential. He has a lot of CC and adds a lot of annoying support abilities while also giving nice control to his team. Daisy is still just as strong and obnoxious as ever. I mean, having 2 redemptions on your team is also really strong, which might be weaker next patch when redemption gets changed and how it works. But I mean, all in all, Ivern is still very much Ivern. Nothing really has changed about him. The nerfs that he's received the past couple of patches were just completely trivial. So with all that being said and done, Ivern is still very strong, so let's take a quick look at his build. As per usual, nothing really changes here. Windspeaker's Blessing is still most likely your keystone of choice because you're still going to be playing that supporty type playstyle. Your items are still going to be very similar as well, obviously going for supporty type items there. But the thing you'll notice is that there's no jungle item in the item build path, and the reason for that is, well, you do still get the jungle item. You start off with the Hunter's Talisman, but you only upgrade it into the Tracker's Knife just to give you those extra wards, but you never really do anything else with that. You just let it chill, and then you slowly start getting every single item to where you eventually even sell your jungle item to get another supporty type item as well. That's just the nature of this champion. And last but definitely not least, we also have Nunu. Now, Nunu is somewhat of a new face. I mean, he hasn't really seen that much popularity, but he's slowly been rising to the top as of this patch and even last patch. The champion is just a counter ganking macro genius. I mean, you don't really run around ganking that much with Nunu. You don't go to lanes too often. I mean, you can, but his damage done, honestly, usually isn't the highest, right? Because he excels at counter ganking, he excels at counter jungling, and he also excels at the macro play, getting early dragons, getting a Rift Herald, and just setting up vision for his team and just getting things rolling in that way and being at the right place at the right time, buffing up your ADCs with the extra attack speed and movement speed. That's just the kind of champion he is, very similar to Ivern in a sense. Where Ivern and Nunu both aren't champions you pick to hard carry the game by yourself and just do the most damage, they're champions that support your team very well and set the macro game up because of just how they work. So with all of that being said, let's take a very quick look at the build that you want to run when playing Nunu. Your keystone of choice is going to be Stoneborn Pact, and the reason for this is, like I said, he is also like a supporty type champion where you throw your Ice Blast and your ADC and the rest of your team attacks them and they get bonus effects. You're just setting up everything for your team, but you're letting them finish up the job. That's what your job is. Personally, I think the Redmercy is the best one on Nunu just because it gives you that extra damage since you do kind of lack it, so the true damage is always very useful and welcoming. But other than that, I feel like everything else should be somewhat self-explanatory. Now, before I end off this video, there are going to be a couple of honorable mentions that I want to just very quickly touch on. The first of which being Twitch. Now, Twitch is arguably the best ADC right now next to Draven. Both of them are very strong, and maybe Caitlyn just under them. And the reason for that is because Twitch scales like a madman. I mean, this guy in the late game with all items and just absolute huge damage with his ultimate is extremely difficult to stop, and he can almost tear through any single champion. So you can almost look at Twitch as a ticking time bomb. If you don't finish the game fast enough, then you probably are going to lose. Following this, you also have champions like Draven that I think are very strong also, whether you play him jungle or top. And the reason for this is because not only does he do a lot of damage, he's got one of the best initiations of just the distance he can cover with his EQ ultimates. And on top of this, a lot of the meta champions like Malzahar, even Orianna, maybe someone like Aurelion Sol, Draven, Twitch, all these champions are very immobile. They don't have any dashes other than flash, and Draven's ultimate is perfect at just closing them in and forcing them to stay within an area and focusing them down. But either way guys, there you have it, the best champions of this patch. If you enjoyed the video, then definitely hit it with that like button. Thank you all so much for watching and the support that you have given me on my channel. I really honestly truly do appreciate it. But make sure to share this video with your friends so everyone else knows what's OP and what's strong at the very moment as well. Definitely check out pro guides down below, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Peace.